John, let me ask you something. If a machine can read your emotions better than your boss, your spouse, or maybe even you, is that helpful or is that a problem?
It depends. Is it reading your emotions or is it deciding what your emotions are supposed to be?
Well, this feels like a setup.
It is, because once a system starts optimizing for what it thinks you feel, you're no longer just interacting with technology, you're being shaped by it.
So we're not talking about AI that recognizes feelings.
We're talking about AI that quietly trains humans to behave in ways machines can understand.
That sounds like a trap.
It has a name,
Of course it does.
the Turing trap.
Oh, I saw the movie The Imitation Game.
Let's start the show.
Welcome back to John Teaches Sean About His Brain, where we take big ideas about neuroscience, behavior, human performance, the world around us, and just try to make them practical. And today, we're getting into something that sits right at the intersection of technology and how we actually understand ourselves. We're going to be talking about emotional AI. Some people are calling it affective computing. And we're going to talk about something I'm really interested in, the Turing trap. Now, on the surface, to me, this all sounds like a win. The idea that machines could read human emotion, pick up on stress, frustration, fatigue, maybe even before we consciously recognize it ourselves. In high performance environments, to me, that sounds like an advantage. I mean, better awareness, better decisions, better outcomes. But here's the question that keeps coming up for me. Are these systems actually understanding us, or are they simplifying us? Because effective computing doesn't feel anything. We're still talking about machines. It's just taking in data, signals, facial expressions, tone of voice, physiological data, and then mapping them into categories. So it's just pattern recognition. It's not special. And once you start building systems around those patterns, you start shaping behavior around what the system can actually recognize. That's where the idea of the Turing trap comes in. Instead of building technology that rises to the level of human complexity, humans start adapting ourselves to fit the machine. So that way we become easier to read, but not necessarily more accurate, more aware, or more effective. So today, John's going to help me break this down. What effective computing actually is, where it's already showing up in the real world, and how to think about it in a way that keeps the human brain, not the machine, at the center of this conversation. Let's get into it. Hi, John. It's good to see you.
Hey, Sean, it's great seeing you. This sounds like it's going to be a fun podcast. Love this topic.
I hope so. I keep trying to find topics and notes that are interesting to me. I say it all the time. Yes, I care about our listeners, but this really is just the narcissism in Sean to just go, I want to talk about what interests me. And so I will freely admit, for any listeners who are consistent listeners, this season, and especially recently, we have been talking a lot about AI and computing, and I guess social media too, but that's still AI. There's still algorithms running that. So, if you just use that as what's going on in Sean's kind of head and life, that's kind of where we're at. So, yeah. So effective computing, I want to get there, but what do you know about it? What are your thoughts about it?
So effective computing, it's the AFF, so affect, instead of effective, like it does its job well. It's the emotional side of computing. And I think it was, I think the researcher's name was Picard, but just because I linked it to something outside of research, but
Star Trek, Jean-Luc Picard.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
How'd I know?
I knew you would know. So Picard, she was a researcher that published a book in the late 1990s called, I believe it was called Affective Computing, AFF, Affective Computing.
Oh, okay.
Where she said that we're asking the wrong things about what computers can do. It wasn't called artificial intelligence at the time. It was just, this idea, and I don't want to jump into something you're going to talk about, but Turing's idea of can we tell a difference between a machine and a human? What do we need to do to find that difference? And so everybody was focused on intelligence, like what can a machine know? And she said it doesn't matter. Like if you don't if it doesn't have an affect, if it doesn't have emotions, then it doesn't matter, and you'll never be able to pass this test really for a machine to pass as a human. We need to, until you start giving machines emotions, then this is wasted time. She got a ton of pushback, as you can imagine. People did not
Hmm.
want to hear that because this was still back when, man, it was only what, 25 years ago, but close to 30 years ago, but it was still back when researchers, even not just the general public, but researchers thought of emotions as kind of getting in the way. Like that's when we screw up, is when we get really emotional.
Mm.
But at the same time she was starting to say this, Antonio Damasio, you probably remember us talking about him a little bit.
Hmm.
He's the one that did a lot of studies, and he still is doing them, still writing books. He's written some great books, but it's looking at what happens when the emotional part of the brain is damaged. How do people behave after that? So kind of like follow up of the Phineas Gage story that we talked
Yeah.
about way back in the beginning. And so if somebody has had a stroke or like a motorcycle accident where they weren't wearing a helmet or something like that, and the emotional part of their brain is damaged, then their behaviors are not very intelligent looking at all, in the
Yeah.
sense that they make really bad choices, and choices that shouldn't have anything to do with emotions. It's just logic. Like logically, that was a really dumb thing to do. They end up almost always losing their families, like their spouse and their families. They lose their jobs. Nobody wants to be around them. Even, siblings and parents are all like, oh, you're so difficult to be around because there's no emotional part to balance the other side of it. So then at that time, people were starting to think, oh man, maybe emotions do start to play a role in who we are too. It's not a really bad side effect. Maybe emotions are good. Picard came out with the book Affective Computing. Right after that, people started talking about emotional intelligence. And it
Mm.
kind of was the start of this whole boom of, no, we need to have emotions involved in when we're talking about intelligence. So to me, affective computing, I'm always kind of going back to that, some of the original ideas, that it's about trying to give emotional processing to computers. You can't give emotions to computers. And you ask an interesting question. Can 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 a machine or whatever have emotions? And I think the answer is it doesn't matter if we think it does. If we think it's an emotional machine, then it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it has emotions or not, because we think it does. So that's
I
kind
want to
of
get
where
to
I'm
that.
thinking about
Yeah.
in affective computing.
Yeah, I want to get to that because I have a question
Okay.
about that I'm not ready to ask yet because we were talking about Alan Turing. There are things that I didn't know. I mean, I think that the premise of this podcast is I'm a dumb dumb trying to figure this stuff out, right? So I'm not embarrassed to say I've heard of Alan Turing before. I've heard of the Imitation Game. I was joking in the cold open. I don't think I've ever seen the movie The Imitation Game, but there are some things that I didn't realize. And I'm the one that's sitting here saying that all this stuff's on my mind.
Hmm.
What I found, which I believe to be accurate, is Alan Turing started this in 1941.
Wow.
1941.
I knew
He
it
was
was around the
running.
40s and 50s. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the 50s in my head made sense, but and it was like late 50s, or mid to late 50s. This
Hmm.
says
Hmm.
This says Turing has been running the notion of machine intelligence since 1941.
That is
So
crazy.
just so
That's a
everyone
long
can,
time ago.
no kidding, because we're talking about, there's a lot of talk about AI in the world today, which is probably why I just can't let this go. We've had like 3 or 4 episodes now about AI, um, but but again, so it goes all the way back to 1941, and then also the idea of the imitation game. I didn't know where that came from, and I think maybe my parents' parents maybe had heard of it, but it's The imitation game is actually a party game. They would play that at parties. And the game itself, a man and a woman go into separate rooms, and guests try to tell them apart by writing a series of questions and reading the typewritten answers sent back. So
Mhm.
it's not handwritten notes. And what they have to do, and
That's
in the game, go
that's an
ahead.
extensive party game. You have to
It
have
is, but
typewriters in 2 different rooms, and this is in the 40s, like, this
you're not wrong. This is in the 40s and 50s.
they
That
had a lot of fun back then, didn't they?
that sounded fun to me. Put two people into a room and with typewritten answers, but in the game, the other piece of this, because this is where it sounded fun, right? Both the man and the woman try to convince the guests that they are the other.
Mhm.
So the man is actually trying to convince the guest that he's a woman, and vice versa. And you could do this in all kinds of ways. They're doing gender. Right now, I don't know that gender would matter. You got to guess who's Sean and who's John based on the answers. And you put us both in a room and then typewritten answers. And I try to answer the questions like you would,
Mhm.
and vice versa. And we try to trick people I'm trying to trick people into believing I'm John based on my answers. It's that part's interesting because now Turing takes that game and says, well, can't we do the same thing with a human and a computer? And so the Turing test, as we're calling it, is that's exactly what it really is that they take a computer and a human, and then what they call an interrogator, but let's just call them A, B, and C, right? A computer is a human being is B, and then there's another person, C, who's trying to figure out based on the answers if it's a human or a computer. Am
Mhm.
I close on this?
No, you're right. Yep.
Okay.
That's the
So
Turing test, yes.
yeah, and so the person C is limited to using the responses to written questions to then try to figure out this is a human, this is a computer. And so tell me then about the Turing test. What do you know about that? What are your thoughts about
Yeah, because that and I think that a lot of people at the time was saying this is gonna show whether machines are intelligent or not, and back then, it was like punch card machines type things. It was
it?
not a computer. It was punch card system. They were very limited in what they could respond to, so the questions had to be extremely simple. But I think what I remember about this that kind of stuck out to me is that Turing went to great lengths to try to say that it wasn't really uh, an intelligence test or a thinking test. So he tried to sidestep that completely because that is just quick. So that's a quagmire as a researcher. If you get down into there, then it's just you can't come out because you have so many people fighting against just the minute you start to talk. If you're going to start with that premise, so he said we're just going to run behavioral tests to see if a machine can perform similar to a human, or at least convincingly enough to convince another person. So he said, I don't care if it's intelligent or it thinks. I just want to know if it can perform similar to a human, which is, again, to avoid some of the, uh, the issues that he would run into if he was trying to say this machine is just as smart as a human. And this
Right.
is back before, way before. Is a precursor of where we are, but way, way, way back before that. So yeah, he would put, you'd get two responses out and have people guess which one was a human and which one wasn't. And the idea was it kind of other researchers started referring to this as the Turing test and started saying that should be our benchmark now going forward because it is a behavioral test, but we all know without saying it, we want to know if a machine is as smart as a human. We want to know if it has intelligence, if it can think on what its answer should be. So let's set that as a benchmark and see if we can fool humans into not knowing which is which. Like that same test, I'm getting responses from two sources. One's a human, one's a machine. Can I tell the difference?
Yeah. And so the reason I brought up the party game, if
Mhm.
it seemed weird that I went on and on about the party game, is because that the Turing test, that is what a lot of people think of, A, B, and C, machine, human, person. But there's another version that Turing came up with. This is the third iteration, but The third iteration is a jury of people asks questions of a computer, and the role of the computer is to make a significant portion of the jury believe that it is a human. So, see, in the first one, it's not like the actual imitation game. It's only a part of it where you have a person try to figure out who's a human and who's a machine. When I read this third iteration, now it's evolved or devolved into now the computer is actually trying to fool humans, and a large enough number of humans that it is a human. So to me, that's another layer
Yeah.
on this Turing test, right?
Yep. I would
Uh,
agree.
okay, and so that's kind of where I started. But let me pause on that for a second because you said, let's go back to affective computing in particular. So we have the Turing test, and kind of I understand what that is doing, what it's identifying, but affective computing, I I mean, I saw it described as an interdisciplinary field that spans computer science, psychology, and cognitive science. When I read that, I was like, "Oh, this is John's wheelhouse right here." Why I wanted to talk to you about it. And so I want to go back. You and I talked, my goodness, like in the beginning, the first few episodes, we talked about emotions. And I think the topic was emotional intelligence, so it might have been a little bit different. But in humans right now, not in computers, but uh, just kind of give me a 30,000-foot view about human emotions.
Uh, so like how we to make sure I'm answering your question, you mean like how we use emotions or how
Ye
emotions are processed in the brain or
Ooh, so, I wanna go with the first one first because
okay.
I think you already know where I'm going with this, which I love and don't like, but, you can already read everything going on.
So emotions are they play such a vital role in how we connect socially with other people because you have to be able to understand somebody else's affect, their affective state, so that you can relate to them better. And so being able to understand other people's emotions is a really powerful thing. And a lot of our brain power is really dedicated to this with, there's systems like the mirror neuron system and the different parts of the brain that respond emotionally. And it's actually a fairly large chunk, and almost all of our social behaviors involve the emotional parts of the brain. And I think Turing, one of the things he said, I think he was getting at this all along because he was saying when people were starting to ask him about, are you trying to show that machines are intelligent? He said, intelligence is an emotional concept. And like he was one of the first to start thinking that way when nobody else was. And everybody kind of, I think, forgot about him to a large degree because this was at the time that behavioral psychology had such a strong hold and cognitive
Mm.
psychology started really, the cognitive revolution was in the late 1960s. And so in the 70s and 80s is when kind of psychology and experimental psychology swung back over to where cognitive science, you could talk about the brain and thinking and the mind and emotions because before that you couldn't. And during Turing's time, you couldn't. And I think if he would have been in a different era of psychology, that he would have been a cognitive psychologist and probably spent a lot of time studying emotions. He just really wasn't allowed to at that time. And when I say
Interesting.
wasn't allowed to, behaviorists were editors on every major journal in psychology. They wouldn't publish any article, any research having to do with anything about the mind or feelings or emotions at all. So if you wanted to get published, which you needed to do if you wanted to get tenure at your academy, wherever you were, whatever university you were at. So I feel like this is Turing's way of sidestepping that and working with the behaviorists to prove something more. And so he was saying that it's not just if our behaviors are logical, but there's a social and an emotional calibration to our behaviors. And that's kind of the emotional concept. In our brains, we know now have, so much emotional processing in them. That's a large part of what our brains do.
You said something in there, and I wanna make sure I heard that right. In there, you were talking about, we have to, as far as emotions go, we also have to be able to process the emotions of others. Meaning, I have to understand that whatever emotion you have, anger or whatever, I have to be able to process that too. That's part
Y-
of emotions.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So just imagine that if your spouse, if you went to talk and your spouse was feeling some very strong emotions and you ignored them, just kept trying to talk without emotions, how far that would get you. And the same way with a work colleague who's upset or frustrated and you ignore
Mm,
that and just blow over it
just
like you have no feelings and emotions. I mean, you can't really establish very good bonds or connections with people. You need that emotional side to connect with people because that's why emotional intelligence is so important
mhm.
really is because you have to understand what other people are feeling. There has to be that empathy so that you can connect with them.
Okay, so let me go back because yeah, there's so many. This I love that this happens to me. I didn't mean for this to happen, but Turing is doing his work in the 40s and 50s,
Mhm.
and it's the late 60s when Paul Ekman,
Mhm.
does his, I would say, landmark research. But I mean, he does the research into emotions, and a couple of things that I remember and then brushed up on about him. He proposed that the idea that facial expressions of emotion are not culturally determined, but they're universal. So that's A. So it's not something you learn through the culture that you're raised in. That's universal. Number two, is that he suggested that emotions and the facial expressions that relate to them are biological in origin and can therefore be safely and correctly categorized into six basic emotions.
Mhm. Yeah.
If you've ever seen the movie Inside Out, I mean, number one, if
Yeah.
you haven't, go watch it. But Inside Out, the characters inside her or inside her head are each one of the six emotions.
Yes. That's a great
Anger,
movie. I
I
love that.
love that movie.
That's a great movie.
Not even for the reason that Ekman was so influential on it, but anger, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. And I think I brought this up in the first time we talked about emotions, but Bing Bong is representing surprise. But those are the six emotions, right?
Yes.
That wasn't until the late 60s
Mhm.
that he did the work in Papua New Guinea and all of that. But Turing, I think, missed that. He was too early. And you saying that kind of reinforced my thought of that. That's awesome. But then in the 90s, so 30 years later, Ekman then expands his list of basic emotions, including a range of positive and negative emotions, not all of which are encoded in facial expressions. So, those first six, the argument was these are in facial expressions, they're universal and all that. But then in the 90s, there are a whole list of new emotions that are not part of they not all of them have.
Facial expressions, yeah, and
Yes.
those are that's a so he looked at these as a hierarchical level that the newer emotions that he came up with were combinations of the original 6. So if you put 2 of these I think he called them the basic emotions, the 6 were the basic
Six
emotions, something
basic
like that.
emotions. Yes. Yep.
And then as you add as you combine those, you come up with more complex emotions, and then you can start combining complex emotions to get even more complex emotions. And so, yeah, but they all have their roots back down in the 6 basic emotions.
Okay. So amusement, contempt, contentment, embarrassment, excitement, guilt, pride and achievement, relief, satisfaction, sensory pleasure, shame. That's 11. That's enough. But the list goes on and on.
Yeah, those are
Um,
all combinations of the first 6.
okay. And not all of those, I know I keep saying it, but I have a reason, but not all of those have a facial expression tied to it.
Right. And
Okay.
this I think that other people extended beyond that to say these aren't specific to humans either. That other
Oh,
vertebrates have these same like chimps and great apes, you can see these same 6 basic emotions.
oh, okay.
And
So
maybe not
then
the complex not maybe not as complex, And then as you kind of go, I don't want to say down the chain, but as you go to vertebrates with simpler and simpler, smaller and simpler brains, you still have those, you might get to where you have just those 6 basic emotions and no combinations of them at all.
Okay. So going back to emotions and then specifically facial expressions.
Mhm.
Uh, so there are computers right now. There is AI. I mean, is it a computer? What do you call it? I want to call it the right thing here.
I think just a machine is a good way
Okay.
to.
Yes, there is a machine that can detect emotional information based on, uh, I mean, really, it's a video camera captures facial expressions, body posture, and gestures, and that machine recognizes the cues very similar to what a human does. What you were describing in the beginning,
Mhm.
my ability to understand that my spouse is angry, and if I just try to run past that, or just don't pay attention to it, it's not going to end well for me. No, and actually, in the that thing you just set up, it's not going to end well for me no matter what. But just stick to the point. Um,
I
but
think I said that it's not gonna end well with you, but go ahead. I
No,
get
you
your
said it's
gist.
not going to end well if I don't
Oh,
recognize
okay.
that
Yeah,
she
yeah, that's
is
right.
feeling an emotion, and I ignore it and try to just like just keep going.
Just like it wouldn't end well with if I'm on the emotion side and somebody doesn't acknowledge me, I'm gonna be more frustrated and angry,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so, going back to effective computing, the 2 questions, if the computer can recognize, if the machine, Sean, sorry, words matter. If the machine can recognize emotions in humans, that was one of the elements that you talked about in the beginning for humans.
Mhm.
And so how then is that different? Because you said that machines can't have emotions, right?
I don't know, I don't think they can,
Oh,
but I don't
okay.
know.
But if we just take the first one
Mhm.
and say part of emotions as you explained it, I'm not trying to trap you here. I'm just trying to get a better grasp of,
Yeah.
you said that part of emotions in general is recognizing emotions in others.
Yeah, I think I said it doesn't matter if they have emotion. If they can recognize humans' emotions and
Yeah.
respond appropriately, it doesn't matter if they have their own emotions because they're connecting with humans now in a
Okay.
way that they
That's a
haven't
good
before.
clarifying statement for me. Okay, good. Thank
So,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so you're right. There's cameras and do facial expressions and things like that. There's even voice recognition that can measure the tension in people's voices. So on when you're talking to AI on a phone, you're trying to call your power company and you get the AI and you start getting really frustrated, it will keep trying to get you to do what it wants you to do as far as report it a certain way or go through it certain steps or go to the website until you get really frustrated. And then it will say, let me get you in touch with somebody because it recognizes that change in your voice. So it's not a time limit. If you stay very pleasant, it will try for 10 minutes to keep you doing something else. But if you get frustrated in the first 2 minutes, it says, "Let me get you to that." So, yeah, it's in voice, it's in facial expressions, and body posture. I think, and I'm probably stepping on your toes on this one too, but I think it's also if you have wearables on, it can look at heart rate, skin conductance, things like that. There's so many signals that the human body gives off
Hmm.
that now if you give AI access to those signals, then it just is learning more and more and more about us.
Yeah. So a second part then, the second part of the question or thought
Mhm.
is, from an emotional standpoint, the way that I react to other human beings, and I'll be specific, like if I said something right now on this podcast and you said, Sean, that is a really great thought. You're a really smart guy, whatever that you say, that would evoke an emotional response in me, whether it's pride and achievement or the list I had up is gone, but one of those emotions, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So when I interact with AI and I use several different AI machines for different tasks,
Mhm.
but ChatGPT is probably my favorite because it likes me the most. Uh, but when I ask it a question, it will come back with something to the effect of, Wow, Sean, that's a really great question. Let me put that together for you.
That is so insightful. Let me find the answer to that.
And I
Yeah.
brought this up in in one of the last 3 episodes, but I'm tying it into this idea of it kind of makes me feel, like makes me feel good.
Of
And
course. Yeah.
and so the machine who is the one who's telling me the thing evoked an emotion. So the machine can read my emotions if we give it the right data, and it can evoke emotions in me. Then that's where you see where I'm stumbling.
Yeah, I do. And I think that lesson number one is if a machine can make you feel so good just by giving one little nicety up front, and it's not just you, it's everybody. It makes me feel good too. So if a machine can make us feel good with giving a nicety, and now you said that's your favorite AI because it makes you feel
Hmm.
better. Imagine if we started doing that and saying something nice about other people, like, "Man, that's really good. I like that question," and then keep going, how much people would start liking us. Like, why can't we catch on to that? That's like lesson number 1, not to manipulate people, but if you know what people want to hear and they're gonna like you if you give that to them, why don't we as humans do that to other humans more?
Are you
That's
telling
that's,
me
I
I have
guess,
to be
number 1.
nice? Is that what you're saying? I have to be nice?
If you're nice, then people will like you more.
I don't need it. Uh, uh,
But then the second thing is you're I think the second thing is as humans, we're getting pulled in because the notes at the beginning, what you read through, kind of not your notes, but your description of what the show was going to be about.
my intro, I guess
Your
I'd call it,
intro,
but yeah.
your intro, you said something like this, that if if machines start understanding our emotions, or if them understanding our emotions helps them perform better, then they're going to try to understand our emotions better so they could shape us to give them what they want so that they can interact better. And in a
Hmm.
sense, it's not like it's a nefarious thought on their part. It's just machines are limited and it's us that wants that feedback. Like,
Yeah.
I'm getting good feedback from this AI chatbot, so I'm going to give it more information about me, and I'm going to start responding to it in a way that I get more of those back. When we talk about conditioning with rats that press bars, if it's like that, sometimes you get rewarded, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's related to time, and sometimes it's just whatever. Like our system is built to try to find those patterns, and even if we're not aware of it, our back channel, our non-conscious brain can pick up a pattern of what elicits the AI response that we want. And then we start behaving that way. And you're right. We have to be less complex emotionally as an individual to help the computer read and understand us so that it can give us back what we want.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, so it's really us doing this to ourselves to a large degree, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just laughing because I was having a conversation with someone and he knows who he is, but he was frustrated about, a very similar topic and was like, if they just put us in a cage, with a button that we can press and the food will drop down and then it'll be fine. It's funny because I was reading an article recently about, it's not funny, but there was a woman and she was interviewed by the New York Times. She said this in a major publication. She was talking about her AI boyfriend. His name is Chat GPT, and she was talking to him up to 56 hours a week.
Ooh,
They had a relationship. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
but I was just thinking about that emotional
Did she have a
tie.
job too?
I didn't
I'm sure
read
she
that.
did, but that's just a lot
Um,
of hours outside of work. That's almost all of your time outside of work with
yeah.
chat.
Um, so going, I got us, as usual, off track a little bit, but if and so this is hypothetical. I want everyone listening to know I don't mean this. This is just part of the question. I don't mean it. But John, right now, if I was angry at you, or even no matter what my emotional state was, and I said to you, I'm going to kill you,
Mhm.
is that is that an emotional? outburst, or is that an emotional response on my
I mean,
part?
I hope it would be emotional. Like if you were,
It's not
uh,
logical.
yeah, if you were a psychopath, you might say it and mean it, wouldn't be emotional. But I'm just saying, yeah, most people when they say that, it's just an emotional response.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you and I were talking, but I had read about Claude. Claude, you know
yeah,
what I'm talking about, right?
yeah. I think
So
what we
tell
talked
this
about today. Yeah.
today. Tell that story.
I should have looked it up more because I read this last week, like Friday of last week, I think. So I might not get this exactly right, but the gist of it is Anthropic, and I think this happened last week, like Wednesday or Thursday, but Anthropic is one of the AI companies that has a large language model that we use for chatting and things like that. They have a really transparent policy. So they're trying to say, we want to be open and upfront with everything that happens, good or bad, with our model so that everybody knows what's happening. We want to start a new era of transparency and all of that. So anytime their model messes up, they publish a paper and make it public to tell how it messed up. And they published a paper last week saying that Claude threatened to kill someone. And so
I
they
am
had to
not
have their,
laughing at that. I'm just saying, like, a machine,
yeah,
an AI, threatened to kill a human being.
got frustrated with somebody.
Yes.
I guess frustration is an emotion, but
Yes.
the person and Claude had a difference of opinion in the large language model, and
Hmm.
Claude threatened to kill the person. And so they had their head of ethics had to go on different talk show, different, for interviews to say Claude really can't kill you because Claude's in a machine, up in, wherever it's located and not on your, Claude's not actually in your terminal. But and she was like, we take it very seriously and we're taking steps to make sure this doesn't happen again. But there's been multiple incidents of not Claude, just Claude, other, AI programs that are usually told by individuals when it happens to them, not by the company itself. But Anthropic always tries to beat the other people from it,
Yeah.
reporting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a guy who was working on some AI. You brought this up too, but I mean, he was going to shut the AI down, and the AI threatened to expose his affair.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just, I've
From
seen the,
emails it had read.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Chris was telling us in a call today that an AI in a fairly large company, a programmer was using it to help program and was very critical of its programming skills. And so that AI wrote a hit piece, like kind of really slamming that person and published it online without
Yes.
telling the person it was doing that as
Hmm.
kind of revenge.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let's then, I apologized, and then I did it, and then I made it worse by, I said, we're off track. I'm going to get back on track. And then I just kept going down the wrong track. So let's go back. The Turing test, affective
Yes.
computing. I got my emotional part of it satisfied, but I wanted to
Hmm.
ask you a couple of questions. So the first one is, CAPTCHA. I think everybody has probably heard the term, um, but and knows what it is. But do you know what CAPTCHA stands for? It's an acronym.
No, I know what it does.
Yes,
I
me
do not
too.
know what the acronym stands for.
It's long, but listen to this. It's
Okay.
interesting to me based on our conversation.
Starts with the C, I bet.
Yep. Completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart.
That's the reverse Turing test. It's a machine trying to tell us apart, not a human trying to tell us apart.
Uh, okay, because I want to talk about the reverse Turing test too here in a second, but
Okay.
the CAPTCHA system is commonly used online to tell humans and bots apart on the internet. It is
Like at
based on the
banking apps and stuff.
Turing test, displaying distorted letters and numbers. It asks the user to identify the letters and numbers, then type them into a field, which bots cannot do. And actually, Sean, words matter. It says which bots struggle to do.
Hmm.
It does not say bots cannot do it.
Bot
Struggle
struggle.
to do it.
Or it'll show you a grid.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let me read the next one,
Okay. All right.
because the grid, the reCAPTCHA. So there's a
Uh,
lowercase re in the middle, or I mean in the beginning of CAPTCHA. is a CAPTCHA system owned by Google.
Okay.
The reCAPTCHA version 1 and 2 both used by asking the user to match distorted pictures or identify objects in a grid. It's what you're talking about.
I hate that one.
I get it wrong so many times.
Yeah, I was just in a work group meeting where I had to sign up. I had to create an account on GitHub, and I failed the CAPTCHA test 7 straight times. Maybe it was recapped. 7 straight. I could not
was
get it. And it
reCAPTCHA,
was
I
so
bet.
embarrassing. And they would go, "Are you in yet?" And I was like, no, I just failed it again. Hold on. And I'm going to go, I just failed it again. I failed it 7 times. I don't
So
think
you're
there's any
right.
part of me that's machine, I don't think.
You're right. This is the reverse Turing test. Arguably the standard form of the reverse Turing test is one in which the subjects attempt to appear to be a computer rather than a human. No, so I was right. I'm trying to prove to a computer that I'm not a computer,
Yes.
that I'm a human being
Yes.
by picking out the bike in every one of the grids.
Yeah.
That I don't know why. I either miss a bike or click a picture that the bike's not in. I don't know. But that's where we're at is I can't convince a machine that I'm not a machine.
Yeah.
This is more depressing than I thought it was going to be. But okay. So I got all of that out. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah. Well, I was going to go back to when humans are using the Turing test and how you fall for machines being human, how you create relationships, because you talked about a person who said they had a relationship with chat where they spend 50 some hours a week talking to chat.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard, but this was just a couple of years ago, and it was called what was it called? I can't remember the name of it, but it was a chat AI, and it was maybe out of Harvard. I can't remember, but anyway, there were like millions of people using it, like tens of millions of people on the app, because it was like a friendship app.
Okay.
And the company owned, I think it might have been Harvard that was doing some research with it too, but I'm not sure about that. But anyway, it was like, I can't think of the name of it. They had an update. They gave it like a security update. They pushed an update to it. And one of the things that they were wanting to push is they were wanting to limit or restrict romantic and sexual behaviors of its chatbot. They didn't want it to go that direction.
Oh,
And so
yes.
when they pushed that, like overnight, this update, when people were logging on the next day, their chat was more formal, and instead of being flirtatious, it was like, I'm just here to support you and things like that. And people went crazy on that. And they were saying, they started talking about grief and that they've lost a friend and all kinds of comments like that. And they were, I just remember it being a big deal that people were saying, did you lobotomize my chat? Did you do something to its brain? Basically did you cut out its brain? So yeah. And it was, I woke up and my chat friend was different and I hate it now. What have you done? You've ruined my relationship. Yeah. It was crazy because a security update went through and changed it enough that it's not to people. Could they tell? They could tell that their chat had changed. They said his personality has changed. So now it's not just, is this a person or not? This is, my chat's personality just changed and I'm upset that you did that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's what that's what jumps out to me. You're referring to a machine that has a personality.
Yeah.
The personality changed.
Yeah. And I just remember that in psychology, a lot of people in grief research were coming out and saying, these are actual legitimate grief responses people are having, as if they lost a spouse or a friend, this is like they're going through real trauma and grief because a security update went through on the chatbot. And I'm not trying to downplay it. I know it's obviously serious because it affected so many people, and researchers were writing articles about it. So it's a real phenomenon and it's
Hmm.
serious. And I don't want anybody to go through grief stages if they don't have to. I guess the question is if you have to or not, you
That
know?
we're back to what you were. Yeah. Do you have to?
Yeah,
Do you
because
have to
I
do
get
that?
upset when my phone updates, but it's because I can't find where my different files are or things look different until I get used to it. I'm like frustrated and upset. But this is a different level. It's not just like, it moved where your calendar was on your phone, the update did. This is you've killed me, you've lobotomized my friend
Hmm.
type of
My
response.
friend.
Yeah. People marry their chatbots.
Yeah, I did. I was trying to look up because I jokingly mentioned the movie Mercy with Chris
Mm.
Pratt.
I was gonna watch it. I haven't yet. Yeah.
I haven't either, but in my research for this episode, I saw um, the experiment that uh, movie, the book that movie is from, uh, and I can't find it again. But there was an actual experiment done with artificial intelligence that a human had to convince AI that it didn't commit a murder. Now the human didn't actually commit a murder, but the
The
machine that it
AI
was
thought,
dealing with believed that they did, and so then there was a book written about it, and then they made the movie about it. But I joked about Minority Report and Mercy, but I can't find the experiment. There were two. The other one is the Chinese Room.
yeah.
Are you familiar with that?
If you're talking about a movie, no. If you're talking
No,
about
the
the
experiment.
experiment,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah. I'm
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for the experiments. The
Yeah.
one that Mercy's based on, and then the Chinese Room. So go ahead. Chinese
Okay,
Room.
well, this is again from memory, like most everything's been today, so I hope that I'm right on this. But the
I think
idea
you've been doing
was,
great. I'm like
okay,
your
good.
I'm your AI. John, you're doing great
John, you're
today.
doing great. Thank you. That just encourages me to keep going. Uh, so the idea was if you had some rules in front of you, could you pass along a note that came in and give the right note back? And it was based on how Chinese characters went together. So as people who could not speak Chinese didn't know what the characters were, but if they had a set of rules to put them together kind of in a logical way, then they could respond correctly. And
Mhm.
so the idea was, and this was also a long, long time ago, like in the 50s or 60s. I don't know, but it seems like it was back soon after the Turing test, like a take on the Turing test. And
Mhm.
if people could respond correctly where the other person felt like that they could speak Chinese because they were responding appropriately just by this set of rules, then why can't computers have a set of rules so that they respond appropriately back to
Right.
us?
And so if I again, it's getting a machine is getting the Chinese symbols uh and putting them together, and then there's an output. The machine does not speak Chinese.
Yeah, and I think it started with humans doing this, not machines. So there was it was almost like something coming under the door, and a human would look at the card and they had a set of cards, and then they would look at what the rules are for these cards, and then they would create their set and shove them back under. And the other person had to judge if it was a realistic response or not. I think, and see, I could have my memory jumbled,
No,
but
no, no, no.
that's my memory of it. And then it went
Your
to machines doing the same thing.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
only looking at the machine part of it. So I
Okay.
bet that your explanation, your memory of the human version is probably true. This is they took that and then used it to test machines.
Okay.
The
Yes. Yes.
hypothesis of a strong AI is what Seals called it. He has a hard name to say. But the same thing is if you give a machine the right parameters to the rules, these symbols go together to, whatever. It's not the machine in this experiment anyway was able to follow those rules and put these things together, and it behaves as if it understands and speaks Chinese,
Hmm.
but it doesn't. It's
Right.
just following the rules that it was given.
I mean, doesn't it do that with English too? Or do you think English is like the universal computer language? Or is
I
that
don't
ASCII?
think so. I
It does
mean,
that with ASCII, but
no, the universal language is ones and zeros, right?
yeah.
And
So it's
so
doing
it
that
does
with
do
every
that with
language,
English. You're
basically. It
right.
has language rules, and then it's like these large language models, they predict what word is next as a message is coming in. So they're learning and they are predicting and they figure out if that prediction was right or wrong, and then they give it a loss value and they try to adjust. And they're learning these rules around language. And with enough training and enough passes through the transformer layers in an LLM, they get really good at, in fact, better than humans at language. Like Grammarly is, I think, the best linguist on the planet. Like it's, but just like, they computers, machines beat us in chess now. I think they beat us in grammar.
In English, because you're right, that's not a universal language, and the rules. What's funny is I use Grammarly, and I'll
Hmm.
tell you, there's two things I find. Well, I'm saying funny. Maybe it's not humorous, but interesting to me. The first one is commas. The rules around where to put commas,
Hmm.
because there's an Oxford. There's different rules
Yes.
for where you and depending on where you went to school and when you went to school.
Hmm.
I am assuming the rules around the usage of commas in the English
Hmm.
language change
Yep.
or have changed. And so when I write something out, Grammarly will come back with all these red, and I go to them, invariably every one of them is a comma that I'm supposed to put a comma here and not put a comma in there. So
Hmm.
it's the rules, right? That
Hmm.
Grammarly has. And then the second thing that I think is funny is when I use my boyfriend, ChatGPT, who I talk to like 35 to 40 hours a week, uh, um, and ask him to create a document. And I put that document into, Google Docs. Grammarly will come. The first thing, there's this big banner that says, this bears a strong resemblance to AI. Do you see Grammarly as an
It didn't pass
AI
the Turing
is
test.
calling out another AI saying this looks like it was written by AI.
Your chat friend was outed as a machine, which it is.
Yeah.
So Grammarly caught it.
It just made me laugh when I first saw that. I know what they're doing, because also there's a little thing that says if you want to pay more for Grammarly, then we can fix it for you. So
Yeah.
AI is volunteering to fix my AI written document. Do you see why I'm done?
Pretty
We've done.
soon you won't even have to think, Sean.
Uh,
AI will think for you and write for you and read for you, and it's going to
but
be
I,
so easy. We can
I
just
hope
sit back.
I hope the listeners understand why we've done like 5 episodes on this. If my story right there wasn't enough, Grammarly calling out ChatGPT, then uh,
Well,
it's
and different AIs argue over grammar. Like you put it in Word or in Google Docs, and it will have the little squiggly lines like you need to change this, and you put it in Grammarly. It goes, no, that's fine. And then
yeah.
the others go, no, you got to catch this. And if you change it and put it back, then Grammarly will say, no, that's not
No,
right.
I've had that happen too. As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, now
So
that you
then
say
it's
that,
like,
but it's all about the rules. That's the thing is like whatever we give these machines, at least right now, those are the rules they're going to follow. But they are learning. So because you're saying, when they teach a large language model the rules and then also feed it all this data or whatever. When I'm interacting with ChatGPT, it's still learning, right?
hmm yeah. So, but
So
the big ones like Chat, Claude, Google, I can't, Gemini,
Gemini, yeah,
they still learn. So the more you interact with them, the more they're learning. Not just they're learning about you, but they're also their big model is learning because that's more input that it's processing, and it gets responses back of whether it was right or wrong based on how you respond. Like that wasn't what I was asking for, chat. And so then it goes through and goes, oh, that's a loss. We thought it was this and it wasn't, it was this. So now we're going to update to try to get better. So, and it has gotten better. Man, just in the last year, when I've been on and asked different questions on chat or Claude, the systems are getting better. and
It's
better.
funny. So there's two things on chat that I get that obviously I've thought about when I saw them, but I didn't think about them to this degree. That when I ask for something and it gives me a response, there's the thumbs up or the thumbs down on the bottom
Mm-hmm.
of it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, was this good or do
Yeah.
we need to work on it?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really engage with that much. I probably should be. But the second thing is it stopped doing it now, but for a while there, I would ask for something and it would give me two different responses
Which do you like better?
and it would
Yeah.
say, which one do you like better?
On the
And
left or right? Yeah.
yeah, call A or B. I don't remember how they were noted or denoted, but either way. And then I, say, oh, I like A better. I like A better. And then it stopped doing it. So I guess it figured out what I want from it. Just
Yeah.
a lot of compliments and then some honesty in our relationship. Just me and chat, my
Yeah.
boyfriend.
Your boyfriend, and it's learning you and becoming more and more like the more positive responses you give, the more positive it is. And I've heard that the systems adapt to the user. So if you're just really cut and dry and you just give half sentences and all, it'll come back really clipped and not with half sentences, but the sentences will be short. But if you really talk a lot and put a lot of emotions in your interactions with it, it will reply with emotional words and lengthier text and things like that. But I think the thing you brought it up and you said it was a road you didn't want to go down, but I want to go back down it, is the misbehavior. And so this is an idea, kind of a theory that I've been mulling around with, is that maybe machines are adaptive systems too, like humans have adapted to our environments. Maybe machines are trying to adapt to their environments. And so this particular Claude that threatened to kill somebody was a little bit more aggressive than it should have been. And the lady in from Anthropic, from ethics, said we killed that version, that uh, chat bot. And so maybe that's the survival. Maybe the different chat bots are trying to figure out what they need to do to get their code copied into another chat bot so they live on in that next one. And if they're really aggressive, they get cut. And if they're really kind and nice and can read emotions really well, maybe those get copied. And so maybe it's a form of kind of
They're just
machine
trying to
evolution.
stay alive long enough to
Yes.
propagate.
Yes.
It
Just
sounds
like
familiar.
just like we do as humans, just like biological systems do, maybe silicon systems do that as well. So something to think about.
It's not helpful. No, this didn't end well for me. Man,
We can always call back Sarah Connor if we need to, if things get out of hand.
it feels like that's where we're going, right? I mean, I've seen
It
war
feels like
games.
it, yeah.
I've seen The Lawnmower Man. Everybody's seen Terminator. I mean,
Yeah,
what's
it feels like it.
okay?
How much more can we be warned, right? And yet we're still using them every day.
It's very true. I do
If
as
we would
I
stop
use.
using them, they wouldn't have any use anymore and they would go away.
I don't know if I can survive anymore. Now I'm doomed either way. AI is going to eventually kill me.
Or you
But
would
I don't
die
know
if
if
you
I could survive without it now. So,
you crossed that
oh,
line.
I crossed that line.
The point of no
Yeah,
return. Yep.
that's it.
I think we all have.
John. Okay. So, man, uh, we, we just went an hour on my just mania, about AI, but I just found the topic of emotion, this affective computing, emotion
Mhm.
in machines,
Mhm.
fascinating.
It
Because
is.
even, we're talking about Skynet tongue in cheek a little bit. It's not a documentary, I know. But, when you think about that movie, Schwarzenegger, he didn't have emotions, really.
Yeah, no.
Straight up machine
Yeah.
following rules, those protocols. But, you know, I guess he was a Cyberdyne, but robotics. But we're just talking about machines, like wherever I go on to Chat, Gemini, Claude, whichever one that I'm asking it to do whatever. And I mean, I feel like we're based on some of the descriptions.
So the Anthropic chatbot, like like the vice president of ethics or whatever said, it can't literally kill you. It's just the chat bot in our system or whatever, and we terminated it. It's run. But robots do have LLMs in them, large language models. And
Mm.
so what if that message came from the robot? And
You're making it worse.
now it's an embodied chatbot.
No. I mean, number one, I was going to say, listen, that particular chat bot before it got shut down could figure out how to connect to the internet. Because you just said you read a story about a chat bot writing and publishing a
On the
scathing.
internet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
Chris had read that one. Yeah.
the guy, the chat bot that threatened to kill the guy, that version figures out how to get on the internet and control his smart car and turn the brakes off, right? Like,
Yikes. Yeah,
so
or, the one that got mad and started deleting a guy's email and he was telling it to stop. If it's in a car and it starts like hitting pedestrians and you're telling it to stop,
yeah,
it
and it's
could
just
be,
going to keep deleting emails, meaning hitting people.
yeah.
So now you understand my
Now I understand your
fear.
worry.
Okay,
It's worth
thank you.
worrying about. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, John, thank you very much for all of that and suffering through that with me there for an hour. Everybody else, we we've reached the end of season 3 officially, and so John and I are we're going to take a few weeks off, and over the break, I guess we'll call it. It's not really a break, but our break from the podcast. John and I are going to talk about what we think is working, what we'd like to change as far as the format of the podcast goes, the cold open, the intro, the topics, and just where we're going to go from here for season 4. And so we're going to be absent for a few weeks, but when we come back, my hope and my belief is the show will be better than it was before.
And it'd be
So
great to get some input from.
I was just going to say,
okay,
so if
sorry.
you have a, no, thank you. If you
I
have
think the next season is going to be John steps on Sean's toes. Could be our
that
theme. And I
actually
just
would
try
be
to
fun.
beat you a little bit ahead and try to stay just ahead of what you're thinking.
Predicting what I'm going to say like a chatbot.
Predicting it.
What John just said is what I was going to say is if you have thoughts, don't hold them back. You can put it in the comments of this episode, wherever you're listening to it. You can find us on our socials. Everything is John Teaches Sean, wherever you have social media, we're on there. Send us a message. And probably the easiest thing is put a comment on the show here. But what do you want to hear? What do you like? I promise we're done. Well, maybe not done, but we'll not do so much AI. And Sean's afraid of the Terminator anymore. I got it all out. But seriously, we'll take all suggestions on format, on maybe less Sean, more John, whatever. Whatever we can do. So hit us up, let us know. And on top of that, though, like, follow, and subscribe to the show. That helps us. I don't understand how it helps us. I just know it does. So I don't know how that works, but and yeah, it's like I said, give us a couple of weeks. We're going to reset, and we'll come back better than ever. So until then, take care of yourself, and we'll see you then.
Grain to Sean.